there's still more. First video of 2024. It's gonna be a look back at 2023 by way of books. Most riveting thing I've ever put out on the internet. But I am really excited to talk about this today. I had a big year in books. I worked in a bookstore over the summer and over the holidays. I was surrounded by books a lot of the time. Because of that, I've read a lot of books. In total, I read 36 books over the year. All in all, that came out to 10,062 pages, which was huge for me. Obviously, as a disclaimer, I'm not like reviewing these books because I'm not a critic. I couldn't write a novel. I'm talking about how much I enjoyed these. So the way this video is gonna work is I'm gonna run through everything I read in the beginning, talk about each book a little bit more in depth, and then at the end, I'm gonna tier rank everything. I started the year off with Bones and All. It's sort of a thriller, horror adjacent book. It follows Marin, a girl who always ends up eating those that she loves. There's a little bit of romance in there. Marin falls in love with someone, and it kind of follows their journey as they navigate the world of eating people and loving each other and whatever. This was turned into the movie with Taylor Russell and Timothée Chalamet. I really liked the movie. I also thoroughly enjoyed the book. I liked the characters. I thought it was well paced. It was a pretty quick read. I don't have much to say about this one. I liked it overall. I think I enjoyed the movie more, but both were pretty solid. All right, the next two books I've read, I don't own. The rest of the books this year I do own. I'm a chronic book buyer. I want to have a huge library when I live on my own. That's why I have all these books. The majority of my paycheck goes right back to the company. These are the two books that I don't have on me because we read them for school. So that was Beloved by Toni Morrison and Belonging by Nora Krug. I enjoyed them both. I want to reread Beloved not in the context of having to read it for school. I think that I would pick up on a lot more and understand a lot more if I reread it. And then Belonging was also good. Interesting graphic novel. Riders and Lovers was next. It follows Casey, and she just tries to navigate like her love life and her career all against the backdrop of Boston. And I love this book so much. This was an instant favorite of mine. I'm definitely biased because it's set in Boston, in Cambridge, in Brookline. And actually they name drop BU a bunch of times. How could I not love it? This was actually before I committed to BU. I think before I even got in. When reading this, I was like, okay, I'm gonna end up in Boston. I don't know how, but yeah, this book is really special to me, really important to me. I recommend it to everyone. I bought it for friends. I gave it to my sister for her birthday. So many of the important people in my life have read it, and everyone that's read it that I know has also loved it. And I also did my promposal last year in this book. It's still there. You know, my sister makes fun of me for that, but I thought it was cool. Really solid book, really beautiful, powerful, and a really special book to me. As silly as this sounds, it was one of the reasons I was like, okay, I'm gonna be happy living in Boston and going to be like, that's what I want to do. Next I read A Certain Hunger. This is somewhat similar to Bones and All. It's less romantically focused and is for a more mature audience. Not that Bones and All was like young by any means, but it follows two teenage protagonists. Certain Hunger is about a food critic named Dorothy who likes to eat people, and it's fun. It's definitely like a contemporary lit fic telling of a cannibalism tale. At certain points came across as a little pretentious. I think that was the point because the main character was supposed to be like that. Basically, it recounts all the different men she's murdered and all the different meals she's made from those men. Also, she's a terrible main character, but it works. A lot of the books I read this year had like flawed main characters. This is one of the books where I think they pulled it off the best. And then Call Me By Your Name, I read after that. I also read this in Italy. I had mixed feelings about this one. I love the movie. I think the movie's beautiful and really well crafted. The book, on the other hand, it follows Elio, like a 17-year-old, I think, and Oliver, a 24-year-old, as they fall in love and like navigate what it means to be gay. It's kind of hard to describe because it's very internal monologue heavy, which I found surprising. Just it was like a big switch from the movie. I didn't hate it. I think it was beautifully written at times, but I don't ever really see myself reading this again. However, I see myself watching the movie a lot. After that, I read Tender is the Flesh. This follows a man named Marcos who works at a slaughterhouse, except in the world of this novel, animals aren't being slaughtered. A virus took out all the animals, so they aren't safe to eat. Factory farming consists of humans, so it's about a society that lives off and farms humans, which I thought was really interesting. It's a really dark story. The protagonist was a bad guy, I guess in essence. It wasn't told through the victims of the system, or like the humans that were trapped there. it was told through the guy running it. The morality of it was really cool, seeing why he did what he did. For those that like hard social criticism in their books or like strong allegories, this is a good way to go. I kind of prefer my horror more straightforward and like scary, which is why I didn't love this as much as some other people do, but I still thought it was very strong and impactful piece of writing. After that, I read The Alchemist. This one's a classic. I got this as a present for my graduation, and a bunch of my friends did too. This follows a boy as he basically hunts for treasure. There's not much more to say about it, honestly, in terms of plot, and I didn't like it for its plot or for anything that happened in it or its characters, really. I just liked it because its messages. It was a really impactful book. I read it, I think, in one sitting, pretty much. It's super quick. Text is big, like short pages. It's not so much about like the content as it is the meaning, for me at least. I found it a very inspirational and motivational book, and my friends did too. If someone's looking for like a juicy, in-depth novel, this is not the way to go. I still think it's a great piece of work. This one is called Yours, and it's by Hannah Boyd, written by my friend Hannah. And it's basically just a collection of poetry and prose, and she wrote this all herself. I'm biased, obviously. I love Hannah so much. She's a very talented writer, a very talented human, and just one of the best people I know. So it was awesome to be able to read a piece of hers. I'm so proud of her for making this, and I'm gonna definitely link it in the description if people are interested. If you're watching this, Hannah, awesome job. Love you and I'm proud of you. Following that up, I read Strange Tales from Japan. Did not fuck with this one. I'm not a good short story reader. Every story in here was a page to 3 pages. They all were kind of told in the same way. While they were all supernatural, very few of them were scary. I didn't like this at all. All right, next I read Catcher in the Rye. This one basically follows a dude whose name I'm forgetting, Holden Caulfield. Follows him as he leaves his school and just kind of gallivants around being pretentious and annoying, and I love this. People either love this or they hate it. I found that I loved it. The main character is a total douche, like just the worst. But in a way that is so interesting and funny to read. This is, I think, the best example of like a flawed protagonist that I read this year. You hate him so much, but you like love to hate him, and I had a really, really fun time with this one, and I definitely see why this has its like classic status. Things have gotten worse since we last spoke. So this is a collection of 3 short stories written by LaRocca. Just as a little side note here, he came into our store. I wasn't there that day, but my coworker said he was super nice and just a great guy. I definitely want to read more of his work. I didn't love this. There were 3 short stories in here. Each was about 100 pages. First one, which I thought was really interesting, was told through emails. So it wasn't like stereotypical prose. It was like emails between 2 characters back and forth, and that's how the story was told. I don't think I liked it, but I thought it was cool and I respected it. That's kind of how I felt about the whole book. Didn't really enjoy it. It wasn't really for me. But it did a lot here that I think a lot of people would like if you kind of like things that play with formatting and stuff. And I'm definitely curious to read more of this stuff. Nothing But Blackened Teeth. This is kind of a haunted house story. It follows a group of friends as they go to an old manor to celebrate a wedding. And things get weird. Didn't really like this one either. I read it really quickly, but I think it left a lot to be wanted. It was also, for me, like a kind of clunky read. I had a hard time following it and wasn't totally understanding everything that was going on. And like, I didn't like the ending. I think it was just like cut way too prematurely. I think I've read better haunted house stories. So following up a few ones that I was on, I read The Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which I loved. Spoiler alert for the tier ranking. This is my favorite book that I read this year. It follows the Nolans, a family that lives in early 1900s Brooklyn, just as they kind of navigate their lives. I don't know how much more to describe it. It's a kind of like one of those slice of life books. I absolutely adored this. I picked it up, I think 3 years ago now, just because the cover was interesting. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't read it for 2 years, and then I finally read it. I absolutely loved it. It was so beautiful, so powerful, so sad, but also so happy. Like, it was just a really, really good emotional book. I loved the characters. The characters all meant a lot to me. Betty Smith is such a beautiful writer. There's a paragraph in here that I love so much that I took a picture of and I printed it out, and it's in my dorm room now. After that, I read Animal Farm by George Orwell. And this is basically about farm animals that overthrow like the farmers, and then the animals are controlling the farm. I don't have much to say on this. Didn't impact me one way or the other. I think there's a good allegory in here if you're interested. My main takeaway from this is that I really want to read 1984. And I followed that up with Bunny on the animal motif, I guess. This follows a very, very smart, intelligent student that goes to a really prestigious university, gets involved with a group of kind of sort of mean girls, I guess, popular, like cliquey mean girls, who all call each other Bunny. And it's like kind of sort of weird, culty stuff, and then it just goes bonkers off the wall. I did not like this, but this is one of the ones, even though I didn't like it, I would definitely recommend it. I got this because one of my favorite books, My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Tessa Moshfegh, this shows up as one of like the, if you liked blank, you would like blank. It's like an unreliable female narrator. I think things got a little too out of hand in the end for me. The last 50, maybe 100 pages, I was disenchanted with it. It got too weird for me, I think, which is a thing that other people would like. I've heard people absolutely love this book or people hate it. I didn't hate it, but I just didn't really like it. A Little Life. This follows 4 college classmates over a few decades and just like talks about their lives and stuff. And this is easily the saddest book I've ever read in my life, but I loved it. It's beautiful and powerful, really emotional and vulnerable. It's 800 pages and I read it in 4 days, which kind of is a testament to how strong it is, because it's depressing all the way through, and yet I kept wanting to come back, kept wanting to read it, kept wanting to spend time with the characters. I think it's really, really strong, but at the same time, it's really heavy, features a lot of disturbing themes. One of my coworkers just straight up tells people not to buy it because it's too depressing. I think you definitely want to know what you're getting into when you pick up this book. It's draining, for sure, and it stayed with me long after I finished it, and it still definitely impacts me. If you're willing to put up with the torture of it, it's beautiful. Then I read Woman Eating. This is a book that follows like a vampire navigating living on her own, having to find her own food and sustenance. There's a little bit of romance in there, sort of in the vein of Bones and All. I didn't love it. The horror elements didn't really come into the end, and even then they were kind of weak. I would say if you're gonna try to find a book with like a interesting, complex narrator, I would probably pick A Certain Hunger over this. Diary of an Oxygen Thief. Didn't like this one at all. Back cover says, hurt people. Say Holden Caulfield from Catcher in the Rye was an alcoholic, and Lolita was a photographer's assistant, and they somehow met in Bright Light's big city. That's the blurb. Read Catcher in the Rye. If you want an annoying protagonist, read Catcher in the Rye. This is just annoying. And I think any book that has to use another book to sell it is kind of like, it was just whiny and hard and not for me. But maybe someone out there would like it. Followed that one up with The Vegetarian. This was originally published in Korean, and it follows a woman who stops eating meat, and then she kind of goes crazy. It interrupts her marriage and her home life and her familial relations. And this was another flop for me. I didn't really like this. However, this one was so interesting because on the back it talks about the main character, saying like, she spirals out of control, and I was like, okay, that's really interesting. Like, let's see where this goes. It's not even told through her perspective. It's told at first through her husband's perspective, and then it's told through her brother-in-law's perspective. I just found that really weird. I also think the male characters in this are just kind of gross. I think that the story was just told the wrong way. And then I read The Chain. This is a thriller. It's about a metaphorical chain where there's a series of kidnappings goes on. So if your child is kidnapped, the only way to get your own child back is to kidnap another child, and that's the chain. And this one basically just follows a woman as she's trying to find her daughter who was kidnapped by another family. And this was really good. It's set in Boston, which I love, obviously. It's a quick, fast-paced thriller. I didn't love all the story elements, but I read it so quickly that it didn't really matter. Got this from my grandma. She loved it. Super popular in our store. A lot of my coworkers like it. Very easy, fun thriller. Then I read Thrillville, USA. This is another collection of short stories set around a defunct amusement park called Thrillville. Didn't really like this one. The stories weren't connected at all, which is fine, but only 1 or 2 of the stories out of the 7 or 10 that were in here had to do with the actual amusement park. So that's why I got the book. I got the book because I was interested in the amusement park. And then when it wasn't really related to that, I kind of lost interest. So people might like this if they pick it up knowing that. But for me, I was kind of disappointed just because it didn't have the content that I wanted it to. Then I read Chasing the Boogeyman. I really, really liked this one. So this is about a serial killer in a town, and it's told through a true crime perspective. Even though it's fiction, it reads as a true crime novel. I found that a super cool way to tell the story. I thought it was really strong, really well paced, really interesting, appropriately dark, somewhat scary at parts. I highly recommend this. This one was like a good surprise for me. Hidden Pictures. This is like a straight up horror one. This follows a girl, or like a woman who babysits for a rich family and their son. He starts drawing creepy pictures. This one, Goodreads, like best horror book of the year that it came out, either 2021 or 2022. So I was really, really excited to read it. And I thought it was good. It was okay. I thought that it was told in a really interesting way. There are pictures interspersed throughout. which I thought was a cool way to tell a story. But I felt that without the pictures, the book wouldn't really have had a leg to stand on. The story itself wasn't super strong and was kind of saved by the fact that it was told in an interesting way. After that, I read McGlue. I love My Year of Rest and Relaxation by the same author of Tessa Moshfegh, so I was excited to pick up some of her other work. It follows a guy named McGlue in like the 1800s in Salem as he's trying to remember if he killed a man. He's a drunk. There's like a hole in his head. Like kind of is him recounting that. And it was just told in a really disjointed narrative, obviously because he's drunk, couldn't remember anything, but like, again, for me, hard to read, didn't really care. It was also written in like, not necessarily 1800s writing, but like definitely older writing. I don't know, it was tricky. I didn't like this one, but I still want to check out a lot of her other work. I have Eileen, I would need to read that. I also need to read La Fauna. And I read Starbaker. This follows a couple whose son has died and they cope with it. They may live in a haunted house and there's some supernatural stuff going on. I thought this was solid. I didn't feel too strongly about it. I liked it overall. Not super scary, but interesting. I think it was a good portrayal of grief. I, again, don't have a lot to say about this. They're turning it into a movie though, which I'm very excited for because I think they could build a lot on this. And then I read Go as a River. It follows a woman who lives with a family of peach farmers in Idaho. And then she has like a chance encounter with a man. Changes her whole life. I was really excited to read this. This was just one of the covers where I was like, I need to read this, I need to own this. It also had really, really good ratings, and I liked it. It was very strong. Like, I thought it was good. Didn't quite live up to my expectations, but it was still a beautiful piece of writing. Then I read the Picture of Dorian Gray, the uncensored version. It follows a dude who gets a picture painted of him and it like is good or something. What the hell is this about? Basically, this dude gets his picture painted, his picture ages, he doesn't. Very interesting premise. I didn't find it nearly as disturbing or interesting or thought-provoking as I thought I would, but I know people absolutely adore this book. Red Dragon. This is in the series with Silence of the Lambs. This is actually the first one. It's a very similar plot to Silence of the Lambs. It's a different detective in the lead. I thought it was pretty interesting, straightforward, solid thriller. I think it did a good job of introducing Hannibal Lecter. And after that, I read A Separate Peace. I really, really like this book. It follows two boys at a New England boarding school during World War II. And this was actually my summer reading book my freshman year of high school. So I thought it'd be cool if I read it this summer going into my freshman year of college. And I liked it when I read it then, and I liked it when I read it now. Really fleshes out a relationship in a beautiful way. It's not like Tree Grows in Brooklyn impactful, for me at least, but I liked it. I thought it was solid, and I'm happy that I read it. I thought that was a cool way to cap off my kind of high school journey. Everything else I read was when I was in college. So Silence of the Lambs. I like this one a little bit more than Red Dragon, although both I think are good. This is like the movie one with Clarice Starling. It follows her. She's trying to find a serial killer, and she has to work with Hannibal Lecter to figure it out. I think I also preferred the movie to this, but only by a little bit. It's a good thriller. Both Thomas Harris was a good writer. I think he did a good job with both of them. I got this because autumn is my favorite season, and the cover always stood out to me. And this one follows two friends in England in the 80s. I didn't like this, unfortunately. The narrative was kind of jumbled. I didn't hate this by any means. I just was uninterested. This one was interesting because every once in a while there would be like a paragraph or a page that was like beautifully gorgeous and impactful and emotional, and like the rest of it would be just kind of like whatever. Yeah, I was kind of like let down by this one, but in a way where I wasn't upset about it. Then I read The Whisper Man. This is a thriller that follows a guy and his son. They move into a new house. Then they start to hear whispers at the door, which was a signature of a serial killer that would actually died 20 years ago. Again, really interesting plot, solid groundwork for a thriller. I read this one really quick. I read it in a few days, which is normal for me, but when I was at college, it took me about like a month to read each book, but this one I read in a few days. The first 3/4 of the book, great, loved it. Didn't really stick the landing for me, but overall, I think still worth the read. I really liked it overall. Then I read Night for my World Lit class. It's a Holocaust memoir by Elie Wiesel, who actually taught at BU, and just tells his story in the concentration camps. It's a gorgeous, heartbreaking book. This deserves all the praise it gets. I can't say how much I enjoyed it necessarily, just because it's so graphic and terrifying. Elie Wiesel's a very talented writer. Then I read High Fidelity. This one follows a dude, runs a record shop, and he's dealing with a breakup. And I really, really wanted to like this, but I couldn't. I hated the main character so much. He kind of just whines the whole time, and he blames everyone else for his own errors in like the way his life has turned out. If you can get along with the main character, you will like this. But I just hated him so much, and I didn't want him to succeed. He was annoying. I think the problem that I have with this is the problem that a lot of people have with Catcher in the Rye, where they don't enjoy reading about the main character. There was some good humor in here though. My final book of the year was What Moves the Dead. This is like a sort of retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. Sort of, it has that story's bones, but it's told differently, it's more fleshed out. And it follows a person as they go to their dying friend's house. Started off, wasn't really a fan of it. It was kind of loopy, sort of fantasy-esque. There was a lot of made up places, made up countries, made up wars, and other things that were kind of hard for me to follow. I don't read a lot of fantasy. That sort of stuff doesn't really appeal to me. However, I think a lot of people would like that. But it kind of redeemed itself in the second half. It got into a lot of body horror, like cool, freaky, gross stuff. And I thought that was really, really interesting. I think there were people, especially who like dark fantasy sort of stuff, who will adore this. I liked it. It was solid. Good way to end the year. That's everything I read. I think I liked most things that I read. There were definitely a few disappointments, a bunch of ones that I was on, but there's also ones that I liked and a bunch that I loved. So now I'm gonna tier rank everything. I broke it up into 6 categories. So Eternal Bookshelf means like absolute favorite. I want this on my bookshelf forever, wherever I live. I want to bring it with me. Hard recommend, really solid. I'd definitely hand sell at the bookstore, giving it to my friends, say they would like it. Solid. I enjoyed it. Other people will probably too. I might reread it. Nothing Burger, stuff that's like inoffensive. Didn't have many thoughts about. Was sort of indifferent after reading it. Didn't love it, didn't hate it, didn't really feel much. Hard Pass is stuff that I didn't really like. There might still be elements that other people would really enjoy, but wasn't for me. And then Garbage. She was a little bit mean, but stuff that I just wish I had never read. Bones and All. Again, solid. If you're looking for an interesting like teen romance with a twist, good. Beloved, same thing. I don't remember much. I really need to reread that. Same thing with Belonging. Writers and Lovers, extremely important to me. Beautiful book. I love it, and I'm going to cherish it forever. Certain Hunger. This could be either solid or hard recommend. I'm gonna put it in solid, but it like kind of goes the line. Call Me By Your Name, definitely Nothing Burger. That was just like, I don't know. There's The Flesh, solid, yeah. Alchemist, hard recommend. Honestly, Alchemist could be Eternal Bookshelf or it could be solid, but I'm just gonna put it in hard recommend just because that's in the middle. Strange Tales from Japan, garbage, unfortunately. I really didn't like that one. Catcher in the Rye, going all the way to the top. I really liked that. Things have gotten worse since we last spoke. This could be either Nothing Burger or Hard Pass. I might hard pass that one. I didn't really like that one, but I think there will be a lot of people that did. Nothing But Blackened Teeth, also hard pass. Tree Girls in Brooklyn. I'm not going to rank everything in each row, but I'm putting this one first if I can. Yeah, absolute favorite of the year. Animal Farm, Nothing Burger, didn't really feel away. This one's tricky. Bunny is hard. I didn't like Bunny, but I know so many people will, and for that reason I'm putting it in Nothing Burger, but I really didn't like it. Little Life, going all the way to the top. That was very good. Woman Eating. This was kind of a Nothing Burger. I didn't like hate it. I just was like, why did I do this? Hard pass for Diary of an Oxygen Thief. That could almost be garbage. But I didn't, there was enough there where I was like, there was times when I didn't hate it. Didn't like it ever, but like there were times when I was like, okay. Vegetarian, hard pass, same thing. That perspective thing really pissed me off. The Chain. I enjoy The Chain at like a solid amount. However, I recommend it a lot. Like I probably enjoyed A Certain Hunger more than The Chain, but I think The Chain is a more appealing book to more people. For that reason, I'm putting it in hard recommend. Thrillville, Nothing Burger. Chasing the Boogeyman, hard recommend. That was really good, really solid. Hidden Pictures, could be solid or Nothing Burger. I'll put it in solid, but all the other things in this category are better. McGlue, garbage, unfortunately. Didn't like that one. Starvaker, Nothing Burger. This one's leaning towards solid. Go as a River is solid. Picture Dorian Gray, not for me. That one's going in garbage. Red Dragon, solid. Separate Piece, also solid. Autumn. Again, this kind of goes on the line. I'll put it in Nothing Burger. I wasn't super mad about it. Solid for Silence of the Lambs. Whisperman could be a hard recommend, but I'll put it in solid. Night, again, solid. And then Hard Pass and The What Moves the Dead, solid. So this is everything I read. I think this is a pretty good breakdown. Definitely like Eternal Bookshelf are the ones that I think. So, I mean, everyone should read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Everyone should read Writers and Lovers. Catcher in the Rye and Little Life, definitely not as palatable as the other two. Still think they're very good. The hard recommends, this is like a weird one. Chasing the Boogeyman is my favorite out of those three, but I think there's something for everyone here. The solid category, all these are good. I think I would recommend all of these. I would be happy if I saw anyone picking these up in the bookstore. Nothing Burger, these were just like, when I read them, they were kind of inoffensive. Even if I didn't like them, I wasn't upset that I read them. Didn't feel like that they were wasting my time or anything. Bunny's kind of a stick out. I, again, didn't like that one, but so many people are gonna love that. Hard Pass, these were not for me at all. I think people could find things that they like in each of them. And then Garbage, I hope if people read them, they enjoy them. That's all I can say about that. But yeah, good year for reading. 2023 was a really, really good year for me in a multitude of ways. But specifically talking about the YouTubing aspect, definitely feeling like I'm starting to get more comfortable. And I just wanted to say thank you to anyone who's watched or supported anything that I've ever made. There's going to be a lot more good stuff coming in 2024. More video diaries, more trips, more college related stuff, and then more random assortments of things like this video. Here's to 2024. I hope it's a good year for everyone. And yeah, I'll see you in whatever I do next.
Face it, Brian, she's dumber than a Boston area book report.
The novel I chose to address is Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Queer name, right? The book was actually not bad.